Hello there. Thank you so much for joining us. This is News Channel Nebraska. My name's Eric McKay. Let's take a look at our top headlines today. Starting in Omaha, where their police chief said Wednesday that an officer followed protocol when he shot a man 8 times, killing him. Police shared still images of body camera footage of the incident in a news conference Wednesday. Omaha Police Chief Todd Schmaderer told reporters that police pulled 27-year-old Stephen Phipps over for expired plates during a traffic stop Saturday, and he ran away. 2 officers chased him. Schmaderer said Phipps had a gun. As he scaled a fence, police say the firearm was pointed at Officer Noah Zendejas. As Phipps fell from the fence, body camera video stills show the gun in his right hand as he fell. Zendejas then shot Phipps. Zendejas has worked for Omaha Police for 3 years. He's not previously been disciplined for any use of force violations. Douglas County Attorney Don Klein will now review the investigation and decide whether or not to file charges. The shooting will later be reviewed by a grand jury under state law. This is the second fatal shooting involving an Omaha police officer in as many months. Schmaderer fired another officer in August who fatally shot an unarmed man while serving a no-knock warrant, a policy that's since been suspended in the city. In other news, a man escaped injury Wednesday afternoon after his car caught fire off of Interstate 29 near the Nebraska City exit. The call was dispatched as a trapped occupant, but investigators say the driver was safely out of the car when firefighters arrived. An Iowa State Patrol unit was on scene. A preliminary report indicates the car hit the back of a semi-trailer in the northbound lanes and went down the ditch where the car and grass caught fire. Rescue units were sent to the scene, but no one needed transport. Well, that port strike that's halting the flow of many U.S. imports and exports is into day 3 so far, with no word of significant progress between the union and the organization that represents these shipping companies. John Lawrence has more.
The roughly 50,000 striking members of the International Longshoremen's Association are vowing to picket all day and all night until their ultimatums are met.
I'm not asking for the world. They know what I want.
The ILA is demanding an annual $5 per hour pay hike over a 6-year contract and for the current ban on fully automated equipment to remain in place.
If they keep putting machinery to take our jobs, who's going to pay the income tax? Machines are not. Who's going to pay for the military, the roads, everything?
The U.S. Maritime Alliance, which represents major shipping lines, terminal operations, and port authorities, says it has offered wage increases of more than 50% over the 6-year contract and is, quote, committed to bargaining in good faith.
We're not greedy. We just working people, blue-collar people that works a lot of hours to maintain that everything they need, they get, and we want to make sure we get what we need.
Until a deal is reached, the transfer of goods along the east and Gulf coasts will be stalled. So, what does this mean for U.S. shoppers? Not much, at least not yet. But analysts and retailers say the longer the standoff, the further the ripple effect. I'm John Lawrence reporting.
You know that phrase, a dime a dozen? Well, it originally referred to the cost of a dozen eggs. Now, to buy eggs, you'll need like 32 dimes. New numbers show egg prices spiked this year far more than any other food item the government tracks. Emily Schmidt has more on why and how experts say you might be scrambling for some savings.
We may never know if the chicken or the egg came first. But grocery experts say the egg has been causing sticker shock.
The price of eggs are up a little over 28%. And frankly, what we're seeing is just the beginning of what could bring it to record highs.
The Bureau of Labor Statistics' latest numbers found grocery prices from last August to this one were fairly steady, up less than 1%. Fresh fruits and vegetables, bread, cost less. Meat and milk were around 3% higher, but eggs soared 28.1% to an average of $3.20 a dozen. Experts say there's one big reason: bird flu.
Egg production is down in July about 2.5%. So that has a ripple effect onto the shelves of our supermarkets.
The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says bird flu has impacted more than 100 million birds since January 2022. All while the American Egg Board's president and CEO says consumers have had 18 months of increased demand and less supply.
Any economist would tell you there's tension there between supply and demand, and we're entering our historically highest demand season.
For now, smart shopping and saving may be your best bet.
Forget the brown eggs. Use the white eggs to save a little bit of money.
You can actually freeze eggs. And so if you crack them out of the shell, put them in a Tupperware container, you can freeze them if you're not using them up by the expiration dates.
Making the most of good eggs. For Consumer Watch, I'm Emily Schmidt.
To election news now, Attorney General Mike Hilgers filed new charges Wednesday in an ongoing investigation into a ballot initiative to legalize medical marijuana, this time against a notary. 24 charges of official misconduct have been filed against Notary Public J.C. Todd of York. The charges accuse Todd of notarizing petition pages for Nebraskans for medical marijuana outside the presence of petition circulators, which violates state law. Hilgers announced back in September that Grand Island man Michael Egbert is facing felony charges in connections to allegations that he submitted over 200 signatures with irregularities over 2 medical marijuana petitions. According to an affidavit, those alleged irregularities included 136 signatures with the wrong date of birth, 16 individuals who were deceased, and 12 names that were misspelled. Meanwhile, a county board of the Nebraska Republican Party without any members, the entire board resigning because of a disagreement with state party leaders. All 4 members of the Cherry County GOP board resigned recently, citing pressure to endorse a candidate. Former board chair Kathy Morris says the board faced mounting pressure from the state central committee members to endorse 43rd Legislative District Senate candidate Tony Tangwall, who's running against a fellow Republican, Tanya Storer. The board members said they don't want to endorse a candidate in any all-Republican races. A federal appeals court in Washington, D.C., meanwhile, has given the go-ahead for a prediction market to offer betting on the election. The move Wednesday denies a government watchdog's request to halt a ruling that made way for legal political gambling in the United States. Kalshi is an online platform where users bet on the outcomes of future events. It's relaunched its congressional control contracts only a few hours after the ruling. The platform lets Americans bet on which party will control the House and Senate next year. It's unclear whether the New York-based startup will be launching more election markets. The Commodity Futures Trading Commission had argued the wagers were illegal and could harm the integrity of elections. New data shows a record number of kindergartners did not receive at least one state-mandated vaccine. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says about 3.3% of kindergartners had an exemption for at least one required vaccine during the last school year. That's up from 3% the previous year. The vast majority were non-medical exemptions. That means about 127,000 kindergartners didn't receive at least one state-mandated vaccine. The CDC data also shows that roughly 93% of kindergartners did receive the measles vaccine. Well, a nearly record-setting dry spell worsening drought in central Nebraska. The National Weather Service says September, one of the 5 driest on record for each of the Tri-Cities. Kearney, the worst, recording just 0.07 inches of rain. It's the second lowest total ever. Forecasters say they expect drought conditions to persist or worsen and contribute to increased fire concerns. And that means red flag warnings. There have been a lot of those in Nebraska this week because of the high fire danger. Casey Wannenberg now takes us to the Sandhills, where firefighters have been battling a relentless string of wildfires over the past few weeks.
From Ainsworth to Gordon and Chadron, firefighters across the Nebraska Sandhills and Panhandle have been busy fighting fire after fire.
Fire season started the end of February and it hasn't ended yet.
Jessica Coyle is the Emergency Management Director of Cherry and Kippahaw counties. She's based out of Valentine, where they just had their warmest and 3rd driest September on record.
We got so much moisture in the spring that all the fuels really grew And so we have extra fuel in some areas.
Here's a look at some of the latest fires. The Bronco fire scorched more than 1,000 acres near Crawford. Air tankers and ground crews worked for days, battling high winds and rough terrain. The Power Dam Road fire, which was near White River, South Dakota, not far from the Nebraska border, burned more than 15,300 acres. Not to mention dozens of other smaller fires throughout the region.
Just asking the public to, assist. Make sure that your stock tanks are full in case we do have a fire. Try to eliminate anything that may cause a spark, or be prepared with water in case you are doing something.
Coyle also emphasizes the importance of calling 911 immediately if you spot a fire. She credits that, along with a quick response from volunteer firefighters, for why the area fires haven't caused more damage. Firefighters who are prepared for the possibility of even more fires the next few weeks.
I don't see this pattern changing anytime soon.
In Valentine, Casey Wannenberg, News Channel, Nebraska.
And you can stay up to date with the very latest by following us online. Head to newschannelnebraska.com, click on the News tab there. You can also follow us on X, like us on Facebook and Instagram as well. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day. You're watching News Channel Nebraska.